it taught me something about people skills, how to interact with people, not to be afraid of people and not to be afraid to open up to people and just have that little bit of vulnerability to yourself so that something happens.
That was DJ and St. John Coltrane Church pastor, Wanika King-Stephens. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. In this podcast, we get to know Wanika through her stories of her parents' move to San Francisco when she was only 4 months old. Thanks to her dad, the family is steeped in music, especially jazz, and especially John Coltrane. Wanika grew up constantly listening to records and eventually teaching herself to play bass. Quick shout out to Reverend Arnold Townsend for connecting us with Wanika. Check back Thursday for part 2 and her story of life after high school. Here's Wanika.
I am third generation San Franciscan. And my son, I have one child, my son, Louis, he was actually born and raised here in San Francisco, and he's a student at the University of San Francisco.
Oh, right over here.
Right up the street,
yeah,
yes.
Awesome.
So my parents moved here, I want to say in the early 60s, mid-60s, and...
Where did they move from?
They moved from Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what it was that brought them here?
Well, so my parents were young. They were a young couple. And Los Angeles at that time, I think the political climate was pretty hot back there. And being African American, they just felt like having a child now, Los Angeles is probably not the best choice.
Got it.
So they moved out here to San Francisco.
Okay.
Northern California, which I guess is a little calmer.
It's definitely different.
Yeah.
I mean, broadly different. And
yeah.
I guess different at the time.
Yes.
Not as hot.
Not as hot. Yeah.
And literally and figuratively.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So we moved from that scene out here, and this is where I grew up.
Yeah.
I went to public schools here. We lived in different parts of the Bay Area. Lived in the Bayview and Visitacion Valley. We lived in the Western Addition for a while. But
making your way north.
Making our way north.
Yeah.
But I really grew up in Visitacion Valley. That's where I spent my formative years there. And started in the Bayview Hunters Point.
Got it. And I know better than to ask anyone their age. But can you tell us roughly when it was? Like, what decade were you growing up?
Well,
60s or 70s?
I already told on myself. So I said, they came out here in the mid-60s.
And you came with them.
And I came with them.
I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Yes.
Okay.
She's just making me do it again. Okay. Let's make sure we got that on tape.
That's just my memory.
Exactly.
No, but okay, so you came with them, got it. And
I
you
came with them.
Don't remember that. You were too young to remember that
I have
move.
no recollection. I could really play the president right now. I just have no recollection of that at all.
Right.
Yeah.
But so are your earliest memories in the Bayview then, or more Visitacion Valley?
Yeah, I have early memories in the Bayview Hunters Point. I went to kindergarten there.
Okay.
And
do you want to say which school?
I think it was McKinley.
Okay.
And it was the only thing I loved about McKinley was Mrs. Blackman. Miss Blackman. She was my kindergarten teacher. She was awesome. I loved getting up every day, going to my kindergarten class, and hanging out in the classroom. She was a great introduction to class, but a little bit deceptive because I thought all teachers were like her, and then I found out quickly they were not.
Right.
That was just her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was that your first, or are those your first kind of memories of significant time outside of your family's home, would you say?
Yeah, I would say so. School and outside, playing outside, that was that was it.
Yeah.
Miss Blackman was really cool. I remember she let my dad come into the classroom one time, who was not Archbishop King at the time, but definitely a dear listener of the music of John Coltrane.
Right.
And so, you can bring your parents to school and have like a kind of show and tell thing.
Right.
Well, he brought John Coltrane's Africa Brass album to the classroom. And, the teachers would have that little record player in the corner.
Was it little?
It's the
like
little
a Fisher
record
Price
player.
Yeah.
And she put it on there, and the speaker and everything's just all kind of built into the one unit.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, she put that on, and the class was so excited by the music that we all just started jumping up and dancing. Kids were on the tables, and the principal came in and, immediately blessed Miss Blackman out. Like, what's going on in here?
Right. Y'all were having too much fun.
Exactly. But I remember the excitement of that moment and the energy of the music and how it made us all feel.
For you, though, did your dad play jazz and Coltrane records at home? Was it unusual for you to hear your dad playing that, or were you like, well, that's my dad, show and tell?
Exactly. I mean, that the music was always in the home. And of course it was all kinds of music. So we listened to John Coltrane, of course, but I remember my dad telling me this story that when John Coltrane died, I responded to him by saying, I want to hear some Charlie Parker. That's my man.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
how old were you?
I was about 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So music was always, and records and other stuff was
Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye,
Yeah.
James Brown, Sly Stone, and then, of course, Willie Nelson.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm from Texas.
Yeah, so
Willie's
my dad listened to country music. That's all he was allowed to listen to growing up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into any of his stories of how he got into music, or?
Only as much as I can. I can't really tell his story, but I do know that as the son of an evangelist in the Pentecostal Church, it's a very strict sort of upbringing. And so if they were to listen to, quote unquote, music in the world, it would be country music.
Got it.
And so he was able to listen to country music, of course, church music, which is some of the best music that you want to hear. Absolutely. I go to the Pentecostal Church just for the music. It's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I think is it rock and roll that they say is based on partly on like gospel music, and
well, that's the history of it. I mean, Africans that came over here during the slave trade, we brought everything that we have with us, all of our culture, our food, our music, everything. And so that's definitely been a part of it. So you have those sounds and those rhythms and those chords coming from Africa, moving through the Mississippi Delta, New Orleans, and influencing it. And you get things like rock and roll and jazz and gospel and blues and all of that good stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I do.
So you weren't the only kid in the house growing up?
I was for a while.
Okay.
For the first 4 years, almost 4 years.
Okay.
I was the only one. I was the princess.
A little spoiled?
The world revolved around me.
Yes.
And then my sister came home.
And ruined everything.
And in the beginning, I certainly thought that's how it was. Right. Of course, we are best friends.
Awesome.
Now, I was talking to her on the phone, actually, when you came up. Yeah. But yeah, my sister, and then 4 years after that, and then my little brother.
Okay.
Yeah. And both of them, I should say, are talented musicians. So my sister is an amazing singer. We actually had a band back in the 80s called Mystic Youth with Iskita and the Irieites.
Oh my God.
And my sister was Iskita.
Okay.
And our band, Mystic Youth, was up for BAMI Awards one year.
Way.
And my sister Makita won Best Female Vocalist in a reggae band.
Amazing. Were they based here in the city?
It was right here in the city of San Francisco. And we were all minors, so we couldn't play clubs. So we played the college circuit and we played festivals.
What did you do in that band?
I was the leader.
Okay.
Of course.
Okay.
No. It was my band, and I played bass.
Okay.
And I wrote a lot of the songs, but it was we worked together. So myself, Skeeta, Anthony Bryant, who is my brother, not physically, but he's my brother, and he played drums, and we wrote a lot of the songs together. We would come together and write a lot of the songs, and
Amazing.
we have one song that my dad even wrote, Miss America, sitting there as well. Yeah, my mom would sing background vocals for us sometimes.
Oh my God! And you already mentioned Sly Stone. I was like, it's a family affair.
Yeah, it's a family affair.
It's a family
and
affair.
of course,
I love
my
that.
brother Franzo is a very talented musician. He plays tenor saxophone, and he's played with a lot of the jazz artists here on the scene. I'm just waiting for him to come back.
Where is he now?
He's in the East Bay. He's not that far.
Okay.
But just an amazing tenor saxophonist. Yeah.
Can you? So the Mystic Youth.
Yes.
Band, that was maybe in your teens or so.
Yes. I was still in high school.
Can you get us from Miss Blackman's class in kindergarten? Like when did you and then eventually your siblings start singing and playing instruments? And was that encouraged by your parents or?
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember that we were ever forced to play an instrument. Mm-hmm. The music was just always around us, and so you almost felt like if you weren't doing something, right. What are you doing?
What's wrong with
right,
you?
Exactly. Yeah. So you try to sing, you clap your hands, you get involved. Certainly, growing up in the church. The music is always there, and I've always enjoyed the music of the church. I think that musical thing in this family has evolved in so many different ways, right? So there was the early stage that I talked about where we're just sort of listening to all these wonderful artists. Can remember hearing Aretha Franklin and the Southern Baptist Choir blaring in the house. My mom and Billie Holiday. My mother was always singing, always singing. Okay. I mean, washing the dishes, she was singing, whatever it was.
Not just in the shower.
Not just in the shower.
Yeah.
And we
I bet
all
she has
loved it.
I bet she has a better voice than I do, too.
She has a lovely, lovely voice. I mean, in fact, her voice is so beautiful. We had one of the nephews in the car with us one day, and Sarah Vaughan came on the radio, and he replied, "She sounds like I'm a G."
Right.
Like, okay.
Maybe the other way around. But
it was the other way around, but
telling,
he heard it.
Yeah.
He heard it, yeah. So we love to hear her sing. Of course, there was a period where we were singing jazz, and I'm using we loosely, actually. My mother would sing jazz, and then there was a period when the church combined with Alice Coltrane and became the co-founders of the Vedantic Center here in San Francisco is where it started. And they were founding officers. So it was the three of them, Archbishop King, Reverend Mother Marina, and Swami Turiya Sangeetananda.
Is Archbishop King your dad?
Archbishop King is my dad.
Got it. Okay.
Reverend Mother Marina is my
mom.
Your mom. Yes.
Okay.
And so, when she came out here, and they can really tell that story better than I can, but the music evolved into something else in that joining. So we began singing bhajans, and so as someone who was like 12 years old at the time, I remember us going from just singing these these homespun tunes that we would sing about John Coltrane and the Holy Ghost, and to, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Chita Chora and Govinda, Gopala, and all.
Eastern religion.
Eastern
stuff.
religion.
So it's kind of East meets West.
East meets West.
And that never was anything unusual. It just made sense.
It made sense to us.
Yeah.
And I think we just sort of made it our own. It wasn't really until we started to travel outside of our own circle and, join with other ashrams that would come together and sing the bhajans that I noticed anyway that what we were doing was very different from what other ashrams were doing.
Got it.
So we were like Eastern bhajans with a backbeat, and it was kind of amazing. We would always just kind of light the place on fire.
I was going to say, people liked it?
They really liked it. Yeah.
How extensively did y'all take this out? Like geographically, I guess.
Right. So I as a child, I didn't travel with them all the time, but certainly locally we did things. But I do recall being on one of the recordings. I believe we recorded 2, maybe 3 albums with Alice Coltrane, with the bhajans, Radha Krishna as one that I can remember. And so we hung out. We did some things.
So you said you were about 12 when we started,
this
stuff was going on.
Yeah.
So what is that, like 6th grade or so?
That's 6th grade, yeah.
Okay.
6th and 7th, yeah.
And were these the Visitacion Valley days for you, or?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah, it was.
Well, you want to tell folks what the neighborhood was like back then?
It was kind of beautiful. I was thinking about that neighborhood the other day, and some of the neighbors, and I can remember it so clearly. We had an Asian family right next door. A couple doors down, we had a white family, and across the street from them was another white family. Up the street from them was a black family. We had the Takamotos on the other side, and it was just this, and there was a Latin family as well. So it was just this wonderful mix of people in this neighborhood, and all the kids, we all played together.
I love it.
We lived in a cul-de-sac.
Oh, yeah,
and so,
that helps.
Kickball,
Oh, yeah.
a little bit of baseball out there, handball on the wall at the elementary school across the street, and
Fun.
There were tennis courts up the street at the junior high school. You could play tennis, and of course, we all rode our bikes, and the dirt hill was a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Love the dirt hill. Yeah.
Up and down, or just down?
Oh, man, just like up and down it, on it, in it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
All of it.
Dirt can be unforgiving to bicycle wheels.
It was wonderful. I love to see how dirty I could get and then get in the tub and just mess it up.
Totally. That showed you that you had a good time.
Absolutely.
Right? The dirty
Absolutely.
water.
We'll find that gold next time.
Yeah,
Looking
exactly.
for that pot of gold.
So your parents were cool that y'all were out there because they knew.
Well, we didn't have video games. I mean, we did Atari, but that was hardly captivating. It's like not like what kids have today, right? So we went outside. We played, roller skates, bicycles, and skateboards, and
I don't think you're that much older than me. I was like, and Michelle, I think we're roughly the same age. Like, I feel like we were the first generation, like when video games did come along, but we were still inventing our own games. Like we were still crafty enough that because we came from when you had to.
Yes, yes. So. I love to go to the arcade.
Yeah.
There was an arcade, not, down the street somewhat. And you could go in there, take your quarters and Pac-Man and, asteroids and everything. There was a bowling alley and a drive-in theater.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. So talk about different. I mean.
Yeah.
clearly all over the city and all over the world is different than
Yes.
this time. But
Yeah.
I mean, some of those things, drive-ins are making a comeback. I don't think arcades are coming back anytime soon, but drive-ins.
Drive-ins were cool.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, especially if you didn't like buying a ticket. You know, you could just load in, everybody get down on the floor, throw a blanket
Yep.
and get in there. Yeah. You could get as many people in as you could possibly squeeze in.
Sounds like a fun neighborhood.
It was. Yeah. It really was. It was very diverse. I think it was a special time that just doesn't exist anymore. We kind of watched that neighborhood change while we were there. Yeah.
Were you getting out and seeing other parts of the city at this time? Or like, were you familiar with other parts of San Francisco and or the Bay Area?
Yeah, totally. We would go on like field trips. So it was, our parents would take us out to Fisherman's Wharf or, Chinatown, just to see different parts of the city. And the city was so exciting back then, it was great to just go to Chinatown at night with all the lights and, of course, all the great food that's down there. Incredible. And my dad was quite a charismatic, and still is, individual. So we'd go to a restaurant and he would immediately just like, make friends with the people who were serving. And it was just this whole terrific experience for the family. We'd sit there and he would sort of entertain us all.
I love
with
it.
his wit and entertaining the people who were serving us. And you learn about other people that way too. And so for us, it was a great lesson because then you learn that these aren't just people serving you food. This guy is a opera singer at night, when he sings Chinese classical music, and they have children and they do things, and so it was wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of kids might roll their eyes at their dad or mom being that way, but you're absolutely right. That's where you get to, it's how you get to know these people, and it gives people dimension, and it gives
people dimensions, and it teaches. I think it taught. And I'll just speak for myself.
Sure.
It taught me something about people skills, how to interact with people, not to be afraid of people and not to be afraid to open up to people, and just have that little bit of vulnerability to yourself so that something happens.
Reciprocation.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
So you'd say you learned that from a pretty early age from mostly your dad?
I think so. I mean, both of them were they're just these super likable people. And I guess it could go both ways. It's like if you're really trying to leave, that's kind of hard because everybody wants their attention. But yeah. Right.
Okay. So those are kind of your junior high, middle school days, I guess we're talking about. I'm assuming you went to high school in the city, or? I
did. I went to high school in the city. At the time, it was Woodrow Wilson High.
Okay.
And I would say not the greatest experience for me in the world, being up there. I think I just really lost my interest in school once I got up there. It just wasn't for me. And eventually dropped out.
Okay.
And after dropping out after the 11th grade, it just never settled with me. But one of the beautiful things about that, I should mention, is that my father is actually the one that suggested I drop out.
Okay.
And he said, you're not going to class anyway. Why don't you just drop out and hang out with me?
Wow.
And I was like, okay. My mom was devastated. And I did. I hung out with my dad for a year. And I went to a lot of his meetings with him. And I sat and I just watched him talk to people and talk about grown-up things that I would have never experienced in the classroom. So it was a different kind of education for me. And being a big sister, it never settled with me to look at my brother and sister and say, I dropped out of high school. And so after a year, I went back to high school, did not want a GED. I went back to high school, and I finished my high school diploma. and just sort of, I'll just bring it to where I am now.
Sure.
But as you know, I just finished my last class for my Master's of Theology. So
There's a line.
There's
Boom.
a line. Because it's not easy for me to talk about it because it feels like, okay, you kind of gave up. But no, and when I look back, I was a part of a system that gave up on me.
Exactly.
And so there's a difference there.
And another thing, the older I get, I'm not saying I don't believe in education and I fully believe in public schooling, et cetera, but the expectation for a group of humans who are roughly the same age to be at exactly the same pace and the whole is kind of crazy.
It really is.
And I feel like the kids, unfortunately, in our system, the ones who don't get it as well or don't get it at all are punished. And it's like, shouldn't it be kind of the opposite of that? Shouldn't those be the ones that are helped along? And I don't know. It's a whole thing. But okay, so but you made it.
I made it. I made it through despite the odds.
I love it.
Yeah.
And then, so what happened after high school for you? So
after high school, I was jamming pretty hard with Mystic Youth.
Okay.
I was convinced I was going to be a rock and roll star and the female Bob Marley.
Yes.
And I was just going to sit in the studio and record all day and turn out tunes and help people through my lyrics. Because I loved playing music, I loved writing tunes, and I loved performing.
Is performing your favorite of all the...
That's the best part. That is the best part.
Yeah.
But also coming up with a new tune and then coming into the rehearsal and like, guys, check this out. And just start laying down the bass, and then the drummer gets on the drums and say, oh yeah, we can do this, and then Iskeeta grabs the mic and starts singing the lyrics that you wrote, and it starts sounding like music, and it's incredible. So that part of the process I really enjoyed, the creative process. And of course, John Coltrane talks about the creative process all the time, and we have to celebrate that creative urge within us all to create. That's really how things get going, right? So
absolutely, yeah. I believe personally, they say, oh, he's an artist, she's an artist, they're artists. We all have creativity in us.
We all have it, and it's all around us. All of nature, everything that's around us is this beautiful process of creation and creativity and inspiration. I have a aunt, she's a jazz singer, Ann Mack, and she mentioned something a couple weeks ago. She said, you can hear the songs of melodies in the leaves of the trees, the wind blowing in the leaves of the trees. I just thought that was so profound. So I was thinking, no, you can hear the melodies of songs blowing through. So I'm listening now for the melodies blowing in the leaves of the trees.
For me, it's not only nature. I don't know if you've heard it over here. I know I can hear it from my house, but the Golden Gate Bridge sings now. Have you heard the Golden Gate Bridge? Something about it's not the they didn't do the suicide barrier. Forgive my anyway, but they did something on the ocean side of the bridge.
Okay.
Last year, the year before, and now when a certain angle and speed of wind hits that, you can hear it. I've heard people can hear it as far as like Coal Valley over there.
Oh my good! I drive over that bridge 3 times a week.
It might be something you've heard and you're like, I don't know what that is, but now
I'll be listening for the leaves and
the bridge,
and the bridge now. Okay, I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah. Oh wait, so going back to Mystic Youth and your time after high school, were y'all recording? Were you touring? Were you playing out now that you're a little older? Were you playing in clubs? Or?
We were.
Okay.
We were gigging really hard and rehearsing really hard. We were one of the tightest bands. Oh, I'm just going to say it. We were next to the Caribbean All-Stars. We were the tightest band in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And the Caribbean All-Stars were actually our mentors. And Yeah, we learned a lot from watching them and from other people too. There was some great talented around here. I just have to remember and say my brother's name, Ja Big, who is no longer with us. He died, but he was just a great talent. Big heart like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
Really just a giving spirit. There were just some great artists that we were able to look up to.
That was Wanika King-Stephens. On the next episode of Storied San Francisco, Wanika will tell us how she started in radio and the African Orthodox Church. Part 2 drops Thursday. Music for the podcast was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Original photography is by Michelle Kilfeather. Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast is our contributing producer. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 4th season, we have more than 150 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can, subscribe, rate, and review our show so we can reach even more folks. And if you'd like to drop us an old-fashioned email, we'd love that. The address is storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.